Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kyra, and here on this channel we are all about real makeup for real life and real people. You've seen by the title, today is another when in doubt, dupe it out, or hashtag widdio. This is a series that I created for myself and for you to create an exercise in duping the vibes, or as close as we can to the actual shades of palettes that are tempting us. And I wanted to make sure to say that if you ever see a palette over on Instagram or somewhere that you would like to see duped out in this series, then just tag me over on Instagram or go ahead and send me a DM or an email. All of that information is down in the description box, as well as all of the makeup on my face today. So we are duping the Anastasia Beverly Hills Primrose palette. It's been a hot minute since ABH put out a palette, and this particular palette is tempting me because it has two blush shades in it, which is something I personally have not seen since I came on the scene about 4 years ago into the beauty community. And the other reason, the most important reason that we're doing this exercise today is to kill the completionist in me and in you if you need it too. I have a real completionist attitude when it comes to the brands that I love for eyeshadow: ABH, Natasha, Denona, Charlotte Tilbury, and more. It's just like a cereal box. I want to collect them all, and I really need to continue to kill that habit within myself. I've done a whole lot better this year than I did in 2020, as maybe a lot of us did. But with all of that said, let's go ahead and get into the video. This is what my palette looks like. I did create this from single shadows in my collection, both purchased singles as well as depotted singles, as well as two Natasha Denona shades that I popped out of palettes. The first shade in the palette is called Rose Water, which is described as a metallic bright opal with multi-dimensional reflex. And the shade I picked that I felt like looked the closest from my own collection is this shade right here, which is Sydney Grace Blondie. This is a beautiful creamy shadow that I absolutely love. It is what I have on the very inner portion of my lid today, so stay tuned to the end because I am going to do a quick demo showing you the blushes that I duped out, as well as this eye look right here. The second shade in the palette is called Honey, and it's described as a matte sandy beige. This shade is the closest in my collection. It's Sydney Grace Iced Mocha. I really love this shade. It is more beigey than anything, and I think it was a really good match for Honey. Hopefully you can see that one. Third shade in the palette is called Sparkling Amber and is described as metallic rose gold with multi-dimensional reflex. This was a little tricky for me because in the palette it looks gold, not rose gold, and in the swatches it also looks gold to me, especially in comparison to the other shades that are swatched on either side of it. So for me, I did go ahead and pop this shade out of my Natasha Denona Lila palette, and this is a shade called Magnolia. It is gold, but it does have a little bit of a pinky reflect to it, and so I felt like that was probably the closest I was going to get to Sparkling Amber. The fourth shade in the palette is called Primrose, and it's described as a matte dusty rose with multi-dimensional reflex. Now, I don't have any reflex in this shade, and that is fine with me. I'm not a big fan of mattes with glitter. I'll tolerate them if I like the shade well enough, but for me in creating this little dupe palette, I chose this shade right here, which is called Unpredictable from Sydney Grace. And I do believe it's dusty, it's rosy, but it also looks like the picture, in that the picture, it looks pretty purple. And so I felt like this is a great dupe. Number 5 is quite possibly one of the shades that absolutely drew me into this palette. I also think it would make a beautiful blush shade. And the shade name is Mango, and it's described as a matte coral peach. To me, it looks quite peachy in the pan. And so for me, I picked this shade right here, which is one of my all-time favorite matte singles from Sydney Grace, and it's called Peyton's Puppy. It's a beautiful one shadow look, but it's also a great transition shade. It can really be built up to, I would say, like a medium depth, but it is really, really great. The next shade is called Peony, and it's described as a sparkling petal pink with a gold reflect. Now to me, when I hear this, think of this, and look at the swatches, it really reminds me of like that NARS Orgasm shade where it's like a pinky peach with some gold reflect in it. And surprisingly, in my singles, I had nothing. So I went to my Natasha Denona Zendo palette, and the shade Tranquil right here, I feel like definitely dupes the vibes of that shade. But as you can see, it is very much a petal pink with gold reflex. The next shade is called Rouge and is described as a matte rose beige brown. And for that one, I pulled this shade right here, which is from the ColourPop You Are a Cutie palette. I have since depotted this shadow because that palette is discontinued and it's now been absorbed into my single collection. Definitely some brown, definitely a little touch of a warm beige color, and there's definitely some rose in there as well. I love the addition of this next shade, and it is called Fire Opal, and it's described as a metallic bright copper with opal reflex. Now, I don't have any opal reflex in this one, I don't think, but it's a beautiful copper shadow. It is part of my look today, and it comes from the ColourPop and Kathleen Light's Dream Street palette. This is the shade called Stardust. And again, I'm gonna build this one up. This shadow is a little old. It has a little bit of hard pan on it. And again, I just really want you to be able to see the tones, if not the texture of the shades. 2 more shadows left, and both of my dupes come from Beauty Junkees. The shade in the palette is called Deep Berry, and it's described as a matte deep berry. For me, I picked this shade right here from Beauty Junkees. It's called Tuscan Rose. It's such a pretty shade, and I think I would have liked a little bit of a deeper berry tone, but I really didn't have anything in singles and didn't really think of anything that I could pull out from any of my Natasha Denona palettes. And lastly, the shade Claret is a matte rich plum, and for this I pulled Beauty Junkees Crushed Velvet, and I definitely think this fits the bill. I really enjoyed looking for these dupes. It wasn't really that hard, if I'm being honest, and I think that tells me all I need to know about whether or not to purchase this palette, and that is I don't need it. So the 2 shades of blush are called Grapefruit and Saddle. Grapefruit is described as a matte pink coral, and Saddle is described as a matte terracotta. I was surprised how many similar blushes I found in my collection, even in duos and creams, and so I want to share those all with you today. So the one I immediately thought of is the one that I have on my cheeks today, and that is this little mini Jouer blush duo in the rose gold colorway. You have 2 shades in here. You have Petal Pink and Marigold. So here are those 2 shades here. I'm also going to have up close swatches with full saturation so you can really see the tones and colors in these choices, but I immediately thought of these. I don't think this could be any more perfect than that. And of course, the point is not for you to have this exact thing, but if you do, then you already have these blushes. And it's just an exercise. Like my dupes for the eyeshadows, I don't recommend that you go out and purchase them, and some of them you can't anymore. But I do recommend you go into your own stash and shop around either for the whole palette or for the colors that are tempting you and pulling you in. The second blush I thought of in my collection is actually discontinued. This is the MAC and Patrick Starrr I'm Not Blushing Powder Blush Duo. And you'll see here that we do have a peachy, light peachy pink color, as well as a more brown terracotta shade. Now this leans a little bit warmer, but that's the beauty of duping the vibes. You can go into your own collection and look for similar things, but things that are maybe more appropriate for your individual skin tone. And I actually think that this is a duo that's quite appropriate for my skin tone. I love the Jouer one, but I do feel like the pinky one is a little dusty and dry and maybe a little too light for my skin tone, whereas I feel like this one is perfect. Another duo that some of us, or a lot of us, might have is this one from Ofra. It's the Ofra by Samantha March Chick Lit Blush. And you do have two sides to this blush. Again, a soft peachy pink. And this has a little bit more richness and plum, as well as it is a shimmery blush. But I think you're gonna see here that it is very similar vibes. So there you go, very soft peachy pink, and something that will come off as terracotta, maybe with a touch of plum, and definitely with a glow, but buffed onto the skin, it's gonna give a very similar effect to what I'm wearing today. And then one last little duo, if you will. Again, it's a discontinued product, but I just wanted to put this out there. And it is the Kiko Milano Tuscan Sunshine Blush in the shade Tuscan Iris. This has two sides kind of to the blush. It's kind of an ombre effect. So that is that one. Again, if you have a very warm skin tone, this is going to be perfect for you. But hopefully, maybe you have some kind of duo product in your collection. I also wanted to give an idea for a single blush that represents the terracotta shade in this palette. It's a little more red and reddy, but again, I think it gives the same effect for a beautiful representation of a terracotta shade. I love the Clinique Cheek Pop blush in the shade Fig Pop. I have been using this and wearing this for years, and it is absolutely stunning. I can say with 100% certainty that this is very similar to the shade from the Jouer Duo, and it has a very similar effect on the cheek. And then lastly, I found two cream blushes within my collection to represent the two shades of blush. For the shade Grapefruit, our soft peachy pink, I chose the Milk Makeup Lip and Cheek Stick in the shade Work. Now, when I show you this, it doesn't really look super light peachy pink, but if you blend it out at all on your skin, which I'm assuming you would, it is a very light peachy pink shade. It's really beautiful. And then for the terracotta shade, I chose the Nude Sticks Nudies All Over Face color in the shade Sunkissed. Beautiful terracotta blush. In fact, these are a really good representation, I feel like, of the blush in the palette. But if you're more into creams, then you're not interested in powder blush anyways, right? So those are all the dupes and the swatches that I have found for this palette. I want to go ahead and jump into the demo for the cheeks and the eyes so you can see the palette that I put together in action, as well as the application of the cheek, how I used both shades together. And then I will see you at the end for my final thoughts on this project. Okay, let's put on some blush. The dupe that I chose to use today is going to be the Jouer Rose Gold Blush Duo. You have two shades in here, again, Rose Petal and Marigold. It's a really beautiful blush, and to me, it was the most obvious choice when looking at the swatches of the blushes included in the ABH palette. So I'm going to start by putting on the lighter color Rose Petal with a little bit of a bigger brush here. Then we will go in and do a little bit of a pop on the apples of the cheek with a smaller brush. Alright, now I'm going to take my e.l.f. blush brush into the shade Marigold here. And I'm going to put this at the front by the cheekbones, but a little higher up even. Almost like right under the eye. And then I'll blend into the first shade. Look at that cheek glow. All right, let's do an eye look. I'm gonna start things off with this shade right here. This is Peyton's Puppy by Sydney Grace, and this is such a beautiful transition shade. It's a beautiful one and done shadow. If you like a little bit of a warm, rosy, mid to light shade to just throw all over the lid and up into the crease, this is a beautiful option for that. Now I'm going to take that same shade on a pencil brush here and run this along the lower lash line. Alright, next for the crease and sort of the outer part of the lid to start, I'm going to go in with this shade right here. This is one of my favorite types of purple to wear. I'm not a big purple fan, but when I do, I really love something a little bit more to the red side of purple, a little warmer, as well as maybe a little bit smoky or grayed out. This is Unpredictable by Sydney Grace. And then just like with the transition, I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit pointier pencil brush here and take that same shade on the lower lash line about halfway across. And now I think we're going to go ahead and go into the first lid shade. It's this beautiful copper shade down here, which I believe comes from the Kathleen Lights in Dream Street, yes, palette from ColourPop. So I'm going to start by putting that on the center of my lid. And for the inner lid, I'm going to go in with this shade right here, which is Sydney Grace Blondie. Such a pretty color, and I think it's a great color either to highlight the inner lid like I'm going to do today, or as its own lid shade, or as an inner corner highlight. Alright, so this is the completed eye look. I'm going to pop off of here, finish the rest of my makeup and hair and all that jazz, and then I'll be back to show you the completed look and tell you my final thoughts on this little woodened out, dupe it out project. Alright, I am back. I have finished off the look. This is a little sample of the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Push-Up Mascara, and I'm literally obsessed. It makes my lashes look so long and like, oh, I cannot. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna buy it. And then for lips, I lined with ColourPop BFF2, and the lipstick is the Armani Lip Power in the shade 504 Flirt. So here are my thoughts on this little project. This palette tempts me because I love ABH. I love the formula. It's different and new for ABH to put a couple of cheek products in. I'm curious about the formula. How does it compare? Is it like a big eyeshadow, or is it a different, you know, more firmly pressed type formula? Curiosity killed the cat, and today we're killing the completionist. The other reason that I do exercises like this is because throughout this year I've been working on trying to hit pan in 21 items, and I have now learned just how long it can take to hit pan on an eyeshadow, and I just really don't want to keep adding things to my collection that I already have, and clearly I already have these shades, especially in the blush, over and again. So I hope you enjoyed today's video and found it helpful in some way. Are you working on killing the completionist within yourself? If so, what are your tips and tricks for us all? Leave them down below in the comment section. Like I said, everything will be listed and linked in the description box below, as well as the rest of the makeup on my face. Thank you for hanging out with me today. If you did enjoy today's video or you think that I'm a great person, I hope you will give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing so we can see each other in my next video. And I hope all of your makeup days are absolutely beautiful makeup days.